Just where do college students go when they need help? Find out next, right here on Carpe Diem. Many high school students here in New Jersey look forward to those carefree and really independent college years ahead. But like in everyday life, issues can arise. I'm Jeff Friedman. On this show, we'll focus on the issues faced by many college students and campus communities across the state and really across the nation. So who do you call, at least here at Montclair State University? Well, she's Dr. Jacqueline Friedman Lombardo, Director of Counseling and Psychological Services at the university. And in the spirit of full disclosure, Jacqueline's my niece. So great to be here, Jacqueline.
Thank you so much.
I've been here for years, you've been here for years more than me, and we finally meet here on the set of Carpe Diem.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, great. This is, there's so much to talk about. I mean, we could actually do a whole 13-week series on, psychological issues and that type of thing. But let's start with a real basic. Sure. What is therapy and why is it important?
Therapy is a really important process by which people kind of work through certain issues or concerns that they're having and try to problem solve. Really, the process of therapy is one of kind of exploration of thoughts and feelings and trying to figure out through different perspectives what's going on in their life so that they can gain some insight and then make better decisions for themselves.
So is therapy, is it more helpful at one age or another, or is it good for, across the whole demographic of the population?
It's a good question. I think it can be helpful at any time, but I think that the earlier, actually, the better in a lot of ways. And it's really one of the reasons why I love to work with college students, because it's a wonderful opportunity where a time of someone's life when they're really learning a lot about themselves, they're starting to individuate from their families, they're starting to really explore their identities and who they are. And I just feel like it's a really wonderful time to start that exploration in therapy.
And so we're going to talk about some of the major presenting issues here on campus in a minute, but I do need to ask you, you just described talk therapy, which is sort of the standard talk therapy, but now we know there are the so-called psychotropic drugs that work. So what happens to you? What are the, you're never supposed to ask a multi-part question on TV, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
What the heck are these psychotropic drugs, and how do they work, and do they work together with talk therapy, or are they separate entities?
Mm-hmm. They can be used as an adjunct to therapy and often are, but they can be used separately as well. And a physician is really somebody who would best assess that. But psychotropic medications are often used to treat symptoms of anxiety, depression, psychosis, and can be really, really helpful as an adjunct to therapy, and that's what we recommend.
As an adjunct, and they've actually, I think they're on, you don't call them level 4, it's the 4th stage of the development of these psychotropic drugs, so they're pretty darn effective, aren't they?
Yes, they've been around a really long time, and there's been a lot of research done, and there are a lot of medicines that have worked well for a really long time. And so, especially if talk therapy is not alleviating symptoms for someone, it might be something that they want to consult a psychiatrist about, because there are times when you can start a psychotropic drug that can really help alleviate some symptoms and help make the talk therapy even more effective.
And just so folks know, so we're talking about although people still take things like Prozac and
Sure.
Zoloft, but those are sort of stage 2 drugs, right? Now we're into stage 4. Why can't I say that word? Stage 4, that's the word. Things like what?
Well, you know what, I think you're referring to something we call the second generation drugs.
Yes, that's right.
And those are still pretty much a staple. Many of them are SSRIs, and they're kind of the go-to. So we're looking at things like Prozac, Zoloft, Lexapro, Celexa.
But Lexapro and Celexa, aren't they later drugs?
They're newer drugs, but
weren't they developed later? Aren't they a little more advanced, or am I just totally
no, I don't
nuts?
think I don't think they're more advanced, but they actually, even Lexapro has been around for a while now, and they've been proven to be very, very effective for many people. But again, important to have a psychiatrist to do a full evaluation.
Let's get into a few of the most frequent presenting issues, not only here on this campus, but really, as I said in the open, across the state and the country. And by the way, what exactly is a presenting reason?
Okay, so a presenting reason or presenting problem would be the presenting reasons why somebody is entering therapy. So what's motivating them to initiate contact with a therapist? And oftentimes across the country, but we see this on campus as well, usually presenting problems are focused on symptoms of anxiety, depression, relationship issues, family concerns, identity concerns, sexual identity, substance abuse or use, eating concerns. There's a really wide range of presenting issues that we'll see at a counseling center.
And you know, it's interesting because I reviewed a very similar list of presenting issues, and it seems to me that these are the very same issues that you see out in society, not just on the. I think the only one that I saw that I thought was different was, you know, you're living away from home for the first time. But to me, it looks like the same list as if you were 47 years old. Is that true?
Absolutely, and I think that that's what's kind of neat about therapy and the process of. Of kind of gaining insight about yourself is that we find that we're all human beings and that we have a lot of the same experiences, and so it's not.
Wait a minute, I want to stop you there.
Yeah.
We all have a lot of the same experiences. Is that right?
Absolutely. When
Like
you
what?
think of
Like what?
when you think of family concerns, when you think
I
about
can think of a few of those.
when you think about developmental issues, when you think about a lot of firsts that people experience, going away from college, breaking up with a loved one, needing to learn independence and how to take care of yourself and time management, and the process of trying to figure out your career choice.
It's exhausting, right?
It's exhausting.
It is.
And it's something that we can all relate to, especially relationship issues. This is something that is kind of inherent in the human condition that we can all really relate to. So regardless of whether you're a college student or not, these are types of things that really connect us.
But relationship issues, I imagine, those have got to be big issues on campus. You probably deal with that all the time.
Absolutely.
What kind of stuff, for example?
Absolutely. We do see some folks will come to the counseling center for roommate concerns or.
Right, roommate concerns.
This happens for sure. We are primarily a commuter campus, as you know, but we do have a pretty large residential community.
And growing.
Which is wonderful. And you do see, roommate conflicts, people having conflicts with their sports teams or within their living communities, certainly with their family concerns. And so there's really ample opportunity. You're really living in a large community on campus. And so, of course, people would have relationship issues that do arise.
So what about treatment? I mean, I know there are a bunch of different treatments. We talked a little bit about two major, but someone comes in, they're depressed, they don't like it, they don't like their roommate, they're failing, things are not going well at college.
Right.
What do you do? How do you treat something like that?
First what we do at the counseling center here is we do a really thorough assessment. And really the first step is a telephone screening that we do. And so that can be more immediate.
Why telephone? Because it's immediate.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
if someone calls for an appointment, sometimes we have to work with their schedule and the schedule of the, of the counseling staff. And so we find it's really most efficient to screen it over the phone immediately. And so those phone screenings happen usually within the same day. So we can determine how urgent the need is. And so we can decide exactly, does the person need to come in today? Is it more of a crisis, or can they wait a few days to come in? So we do an initial screening, and after the initial screening, oftentimes students are provided with an intake appointment, which is a full assessment. It takes about an hour and a half.
Do you do that, either you or your staff? Is that?
We do,
Yeah.
yes. So usually it's a psychologist or a social worker, or it may be a graduate student who's in training. We train doctoral students here as well every academic year. And so we'll conduct the intake appointment, and then after that, a number of things can happen. They can be referred for individual counseling at CAPS right here on campus, but it is short term. So generally that means about a semester or less of individual counseling.
Suppose they want to come back next semester.
Good question. We do encourage students to come back if they need to. However, if people continue to return for the same issues, it may be indicative that they need an off-campus referral for longer-term support. And so what we'll do is we'll go through their insurance and we'll find a provider in the community or in the community in which they live so that they can continue with the provider for as long as they need to without being concerned with a short-term limit. So that's the individual piece, and also includes the off-campus referral, but we also have group therapy. And
You lead a group, don't you?
I do. I
Tell me.
lead a really wonderful women's group on Wednesday afternoons, and have been doing that for, maybe 7 or 8 years now.
Here?
Yeah.
At Montclair State?
At Montclair State.
So they're mainly college-age women?
Yes, usually I would say 18 to 26 or 27.
Really?
And they're women, and we have, we do have groups every day of the week, and some are for men, some are for men and women. I happen to be the person that runs the women's group. But group can be a really wonderful opportunity for students to really work on interpersonal issues and relationship concerns, because it provides an opportunity to actually work on those relationship issues in the group.
So what's the advantage of separating the genders? The male group, there's not as many male groups as female groups, but so
Sure.
what does that do that regular group therapy will not allow?
It's a really good question, and
I'm full of good questions.
You
Just
are.
I have a million of them, don't worry about it. Okay.
Oftentimes someone will come in and the presenting issue will be something like, I'm having a really difficult time connecting with women, or I don't have many girlfriends. I do fine with guys or with the men in my life, but for whatever reason, I'm just very uncomfortable with women. And that might be a wonderful referral to the women's group. And some people might say, wait a minute, this person's having difficulty with women. Why would you put them in a women's group? And it's
Wait a
precisely...
minute, you mean you put the man in the woman's
No,
group?
a woman in the women's group.
Oh, okay.
Good to clarify. But the purpose, of course, is because that's the issue, that they're having difficulty connecting and relating to other women. And so you'd want to provide them with an opportunity to work on those skills for that hour and a half. So it's not, those groups are not support groups, and they're not social groups. They're actually therapy groups where we're really working on specific goals.
So what do you do? I can imagine a scenario where you're in group and a lot of heavy duty stuff can come out, right?
Yes.
People can get really agitated, upset, crying, How do you handle that as a facilitator? I mean, that to me is a pretty huge responsibility, isn't it?
It really is, and I think it's not just a responsibility for the group leader that I am, but it's really a responsibility for the members in the group as well, to be supportive, to listen to what that person's saying, to provide important feedback to that person, and not kind of check out. And sometimes people in a group, if things get heavy or become a little intimidating, people might have the tendency to shut down or check out, and we do whatever we can to kind of bring them back into the group and to be present and to really kind of process the thoughts and feelings that they're having so that they can make use of what's going on in the group and support the person who's having difficulty.
So actually, the difficulty you have in group or even in one-on-one therapy, that actually might be a good thing in the long run in terms of personal growth and in terms of working on issues?
Absolutely.
Even though it's not real pleasant at the time, because I know in fact, when I was a student here at Montclair State, I took group class, and I saw it's not always a bed of roses.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that the important thing to think about is if you're in therapy, whether it be individual or group therapy, and you're spending time on more superficial issues and issues that aren't really difficult for you, then perhaps you're avoiding those things for a reason. And you really need to kind of reevaluate how you're using that time, because you really need to get something out of that experience. And you might be shortchanging yourself if you're not talking about things that really matter.
I learned, I come from, a little bit of a family of therapists. There's you, and your dad is also a PhD therapist, psychologist. I've learned that, some people, as you said, they'll be afraid to see the truth. They can go to therapy for the rest of their lives. It doesn't matter. There's all kinds of reasons. There's another group, and correct me if I'm wrong, they have no problem seeing the truth, but then they have a problem acting on it. And do you call that being stuck, maybe?
Some might say that's being stuck, and I guess that's, I'd have to know more about the situation, but I agree, there are people that really have the insight and they kind of know what's going on for them, but making the change is hard for them.
Well, it's big, right? Because change, you don't know what the results are going to be until after the change. They could be positive, they could be negative, they could be, and so it's a sort of a big leap of faith.
It's a risk.
A risk. So you know all the words. That's why you are the PhD in the family, or at least one of them. We are from the same family, right?
We are.
Successful PhD. I'm this TV guy. Okay, that's for another show. So we've talked about that, and we know that it's a risk, and that is the word I was looking for. And some
It's a
people
risk.
take it, some they don't. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about another. It's got to be a common presenting issue: eating disorders.
Sure.
So first of all, let's just be clear: what is an eating disorder?
Well, I think to be fair, most folks that we see that present at the counseling center have eating issues, and it's not a full-blown disorder. But it's very, very common for people, especially those in the college years, to be, experiencing eating concerns.
Like?
So they may have trouble overeating, maybe they're undereating, maybe they're calorie counting. They might be using laxatives or diuretics or trying to monitor their weight in a way that's not healthy for them, but it hasn't kind of reached the point where it's a full-blown disorder. And that's why it's really important when students start to engage in really unhealthy eating behaviors that they do something about it early. Because once it becomes a full-blown anorexia or bulimia or binge eating disorder, which is the third, which is often not acknowledged, it can be really difficult to treat. They are treatable, but it can be a really difficult cycle once you're really engaged in that process.
And there's the other side too, the binge eating, where there's the folks that, with the, what you just mentioned, or the folks that overeat to the point where, and some folks probably came to the university with these disorders or problems already, right?
Yeah, we do see that. We do see, and this happens especially with the college population, in that they'll come to school and then sometimes they're away from their treatment providers from their hometowns. And so they're no longer seeing their therapist or their psychiatrist or engaged in the treatment program that was really helping them with an eating disorder or something else that they were struggling with. And so they feel kind of disconnected with that, and they really need to reconnect here in the Montclair State community so that they can continue to maintain their health.
But that's great, first of all, and I imagine the centers like the one here that you direct at Montclair State are available at just about every college and university across the country. And we were going to show the website, your website, at the end of the show, so we want people to be able to connect. But when they're ready in the control room, we might ask them to put it up now during the show, just to know if you're watching this here at Montclair State University or somewhere else. Somewhere else you're going to call your own university, but here on campus, there's help right there on the screen. And later on, we're going to give them the phone number, and help is just a phone call away. And the website is pretty informative. I visited it, so it's
Thank
cool.
you. And just to highlight too, I put on the main page of our website some information for people who are struggling with the impact of Hurricane Sandy. So on our homepage right now, you'll find a lot of nice resources for mental health related to the storm.
That's right, Hurricane Sandy. That must be, that's huge everywhere in New Jersey, and awful. You probably see a lot of that. That's just, to me, just so unthinkable.
We have, because we have a lot of students that have commute from southern New Jersey and the middle of New Jersey, where there was a lot of damage done and a lot of loss. And we do have a lot of people actually being housed at the university right now, commuter students who have their houses are either not available to them, they're inhabitable. So we have over 300 students right now being housed on campus, in addition to about 10 families.
I've heard it's open to the students and the families. What a nice thing, what a great thing for a public sector university like Montclair State, or really any university, to do in a time of crisis: act and react.
I agree, and I just wanted to acknowledge residential education, who have done a wonderful job kind of really welcoming and taking care of students, in the residence facilities here.
So, it sounds to me we're kind of sort of talking about crisis intervention in a way, because this is certainly a crisis. What really is crisis intervention? And let's start there. What is it?
Sure. Crisis intervention would be intervening when someone feels like they really can't take care of themselves or other people, and feel like their functioning is not nearly where it usually is. And so we'll have people come into the counseling center in crisis. They might be tearful. They might say, I don't know what to do. I can't make decisions. I can't think. So that's one form of crisis intervention. Another would be intervention by the university police, usually in the evening hours if someone's experienced sexual assault. They're coping with the effects of alcohol and drugs. We have folks who experience some suicidal ideation or homicidal ideation. Ideation would be feelings of and thoughts of wanting to harm oneself or someone else. Or someone who has some symptoms of psychosis. And so most of the time when we're dealing with crisis intervention, we're working hand in hand with university police and residential education.
So they'll call you right up. They know someone's in trouble, and you folks will react.
That's right. We're on call every day of the year. So usually if the crisis is during the day, they'll contact our main line. But if it's after hours, we'll contact university police first, and then they'll call the psychologist on call to respond.
Yeah, and I imagine there's a lot of calls, but because this is a huge campus community with thousands of students.
Absolutely.
And thousands of graduates, and all kinds of stuff comes up. In fact, you started to mention a little bit about alcohol abuse and substance abuse.
Yeah.
So what's up with that on campus? And again, we're not just talking about Montclair State. We're talking about campuses throughout the country.
That's right.
Throughout the world, probably.
Absolutely, and it is important to highlight that the issues that Montclair State has with substance use is really no different than any other university. And actually, comparatively, statistics have shown that Montclair State actually looks a little bit better than most, actually, with regard to issues around substances. That said, it is a time in people's lives where they're experimenting oftentimes with alcohol and other drugs, and we do see that quite a bit. We'll get calls for folks that need to be transported, usually to Mountainside Hospital, after they've become intoxicated and are unable to care for themselves, and there's some type of medical issue related to that, and so they're taken to Mountainside. And we certainly do have students on campus who are struggling with other types of drugs as well.
So, some of them are sort of these weekend, one-time only, experimenting, but some are actually more chronic cases. Would that be the correct word?
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
I would imagine that must affect their schoolwork.
Most of the time, yes. And what we've seen is a rise, really, in recent years of opiate use.
Opiates mean like heroin, right?
Heroin's an opiate for sure, but I would say prescription drugs. We've seen more of a more of a rise in Percocet, OxyContin, Roxyset, of students becoming addicted to pain medication. So this is prescription medication, then it can be abused. And is often abused, and students becoming addicted to that. And we have seen an increase in that over the last few years.
Probably doesn't coordinate real well with studying.
It doesn't. And you mentioned the impact on academics,
Yeah.
and that's actually, it's an important point to make, that if students find that an addiction is really impacting their academic life, and most often it is, they may be interested in something called a medical withdrawal.
Which is what?
This would be, and this isn't only for substance dependence, but other types of medical concerns as well. So if somebody has a diagnosed medical condition, and that could be anxiety or depression, it could be lupus, it could be diabetes, and it's impacting their academic performance in such a way that they feel like they can't continue in school, with proper documentation, they can be granted a medical withdrawal through the Dean of Students' office.
Which you're involved with, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we do the assessment, we provide the documentation if a student doesn't have it, and then we make a recommendation to the Dean of Students. And there it's either approved or not. Usually they are approved if there's proper documentation, so that students can get withdrawals on their transcript instead of an F. So we don't want people to be penalized for having a medical condition, and want them to be able to get treatment so that they can return to school when they're better.
I was going to say it is a medical condition.
Absolutely.
End of story. And so is alcoholism.
Absolutely.
We know that, but it's important to stress it because some folks, may not, right?
Absolutely, and we want people to take time out of school to get better and receive that treatment so that they can come back.
How about issues of sexual identity? What does that mean? What is it? What do you deal with? Because that's again that permeates society, so it must permeate colleges.
Absolutely. No, it's a really important part of being a human being. And starting usually in the adolescent years, people start to explore their sexuality. And oftentimes when people come to college, they have questions about who they are sexually and what they're comfortable with and who they're attracted to sexually. And so oftentimes people come to the counseling center not quite sure of these issues, and it can be really stressful for people.
Sure.
And so we can work through that. Certainly therapy is not the only place to do that, but it can be an option and helpful for people.
To me, it sounds like therapy. Where else are you going to go to work through issues like that?
Oftentimes people will find peer groups or family members that are supportive and they feel can really help them kind of sort out their thoughts and feelings about that. And sometimes people don't have that type of support system, and so they will come to the counseling center. Regarding sexual issues, though, I will mention we have a wonderful group at CAPS called Living Out Loud, and it's specifically for students who are working through the coming out process. And so that's been a really great collaboration in years past that we've had with the LGBT Center on campus. We run the group at CAPS, and again, it's for students who are, exploring their sexuality and working on coming out.
Who knew? As I mentioned at the beginning, you're my niece, but who knew that all this is going on at your center? This is really, really cool.
They're great resources for students, and we really hope that people take advantage of them. We're really proud of them.
So what do you do about, let me give you a scenario,
Sure.
if I may.
Sure.
Student comes in, male, female, it doesn't matter. they're stressed, they're concerned, they're away from home, they're having academic issues. That's how that's how this stress is manifesting itself. So this, I would call these issues of stress management, or maybe that's way too simplistic. How do you assess this, and what do you do about it?
Yeah, you know, it could be a matter of stress management, and certainly that could be an important aspect of it, but it would be really important for us to do a very thorough history to find out what types of stressors are in this person's life, and also kind of what initiated their coming to the counseling
What could they
center.
be, for example? Give me some stressors. Believe me, I know plenty myself. But let's. What do they come in with? What do they
Yeah.
present? How do they present?
Perhaps there are some family issues that the person is concerned about. Maybe the person's having issues about their sexuality. Perhaps there's a learning disability or ADHD or some type of issue going on for that person. That's been-
ADHD, just for those who don't know.
Sure, of course, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And so there are two.
They added the H, right? Didn't it used to be ADA?
Well, no,
or something?
the H is usually there, but there are two different types, so inattentive and hyperactive. So not everyone has the hyperactive symptoms, some are just inattentive. And sometimes people initially will be diagnosed with the ADHD, but then as they get older, the H kind of drops out and it looks more like ADD without the H.
That's what I was thinking of, right? ADD.
Yeah.
Because what do I know?
Well, quite a bit.
Well, and now that I researched for doing the show, I do. Yeah.
You do now. And so we'd really want to look at the different aspects of somebody's life. How are they doing socially? Are drugs and alcohol playing a role? How are they eating and sleeping? What's going on in their family? How are their social relationships? Have they always struggled academically, or is this a new phenomenon? So we would really want to ask a lot of questions. And that's why the intake process is so thorough, in that we're just really gathering a lot of data, because we wouldn't want to make assumptions about why this person was struggling academically. We want to really try to gather information, help connect some dots, and also see what the student or the client has to say about what their thoughts are about what's going on. Sometimes students know, very much so, and they're very self-aware and they know what's going on. They're just not sure what to do about it. And other times people will come in and say, this is how I'm feeling, but I don't know why.
So in the time we have remaining, what are the, and we've probably talked about them already, what are the top three presenting, I said reasons, you said issues,
Sure.
that come into the center?
Sure. Would be people that are struggling with symptoms of anxiety and depression, and usually secondary to relationship issues. I would say that's most common.
Again, not to beat a dead horse, but just
Yeah.
like in society.
That's right.
I mean-
That's right. These types of issues are things that are kind of unavoidable. As being, as living your life and having all these experiences in your life, that you would have experienced anxiety and depression at some point.
Well, Jacqueline Lombardo-Friedman, Dr. Jacqueline Lombardo-Friedman, my niece, I want to thank you so much for being with us. And I can only say this as your uncle, that you look lovely today.
Thank
May I say
Thank
that?
you so
But-
much.
But thanks for being with us, honey.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And that wraps up another edition of Carpe Diem. Now, to find out more about counseling and psychological services right here at Montclair State University, visit their website. There it is, www.montclair.edu/CAPS. Once again, that's www.montclair.edu/CAPS. And for more information on this or any other Carpe Diem, you can write to us at carpediem@mail.montclair.edu, or give us a call, won't you? 973-655-5158. For all of us here at Carpe Diem, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.